The shortage of labour is one of the most pressing issues for procurement and supply chain organisations. Consultancy firm the Nivack Group believes the solution to getting competent, skilled labour lies in getting the right mix of permanent and dynamic workforce, balanced with a pipeline of early career hires and older, more experienced workers to do the job. Nivack CEO Nick Gunn spoke to Nick Thatcher from his company's base in California.
Nick, many thanks indeed for joining us today. Let's start with that question. Are we headed for a shortage of skilled labour in the industry in the coming years?
That's a great question. I think we're already there. I think the pandemic has heightened some of that. It's definitely decreased the supply of labour. Many people have left the workforce entirely. Some people temporarily because they couldn't get childcare, etc. Coupled with an increase in demand that has come from stimulus money that's pouring into sort of global economy. I think that has created a situation now where we do have an issue with labour supply shortage.
So where is that talent going to come from? Is it new talent? Or can we call on older, wiser heads, people returning to the labour market?
I definitely think it is. I think there's a place for everything. Definitely, the traditional model has been to go out and hire people that are straight out of school. They're relatively inexpensive. Train them. They're in a career for a period of time and then they retire in their 50s and 60s. But I think the opportunity now is to take advantage of the older workforce, people in particular that want to maybe work part-time or flexibly because they've kind of retired once, and those people can form a big chunk of the labour pool that we're not really tapping into today.
So do you think older people have been overlooked in the workplace in general?
I don't think they've been overlooked per se, but more like misunderstood. I don't think employers really understand what that segment of the workforce needs and requires. I think they have a lot to offer. They've got a lot of experience that we can tap into, but they might need reverse mentors to help them with new technology, etc. They've got a lot of executive gravitas, so they don't necessarily need training in some of the things that younger people that are new to the workforce needs. But their requirements are different. They're looking for more flexibility. They're not necessarily interested in compensation the same way as other segments of the workforce are. So I think they really need to be understood a lot better than they are today by most employers.
And how can diversity in the labour pool benefit an organisation?
We should think about diversity in the labour pool like diversity in your financial portfolio. You want to maximise your return while managing your risk. And we definitely have an opportunity to do that with the labour pool. We should be thinking about labour strategies across businesses as not just being recruiting and hiring people, but where do we get those people from? What is the mix? How do we ensure that we have flexibility in our workforce, not just hiring people to be permanent workers or part-time workers, but how do we bring in talent through agencies, through use of consulting companies, etc. Because we want to be able to manage for the peaks and troughs that we see in consumer demand.
It sounds from what you're saying that the procurement of labour is the most important thing an organisation can purchase then.
I believe so. I believe that labour is a supply chain. Many companies don't think of it as a supply chain. They leave their labour acquisition to HR departments. They do a good job, but they try to go out and recruit their generic job descriptions to recruit people, but they're not looking at it holistically in terms of how do we make sure that we have the right people in the right location with the right skill set? What is our mix of permanent people versus part-time people versus contingent labour and consultants? All of these things need to be taken into consideration because they help manage, mitigate the risk between the supply of labour which we need to meet the demand that our customers have.
And finally, Nick, do these considerations change from country to country? I mean, you're there on the west coast of the States, I'm here in London. Are there differences?
Yes, I think there are, but there's sort of nuances. Things like labour laws are different. from country to country. But overall, I think the dynamics, the labor dynamics that are in place globally affect everybody. And companies really need to start treating their labor supply as a supply chain. And that is something that is really important. We are helping our clients to future-proof their supply chain by bringing together HR, the business groups and procurement to create these comprehensive, global in some cases, labor strategies that help to mitigate some of these problems and the challenges that we're seeing in today's labor market.
Nick Gunn, CEO of the Nivack Group, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. You're welcome.